Hello and welcome to the Good Day Ascension podcast. Each month, this program introduces you to some of the special people of Ascension. My name is Steve Mamanella, and today I'm thrilled to be joined by Tom VanOsdol. Tom is the interim president and chief executive officer of St. Vincent's Healthcare in Jacksonville, Florida, and he's also the system chief operating officer for our Jacksonville ministry market. Tom, thank you very much for being with us on the Good Day Ascension podcast.
My pleasure, Steve. I appreciate the opportunity to be here.
So, Tom, I mentioned you're in Jacksonville. I want to get to Jacksonville more in just a bit. But before that, you came to Jacksonville from another Ascension health system named St. Vincent Health in Indiana. And you started there back in 1990 as a speech pathologist.
That's correct. I did. I had the blessing of serving a couple other places prior to coming to Catholic Healthcare and the ministry that ultimately became part of St. Vincent Health in Indiana and Ascension, and it was just a wonderful, wonderful blessing and journey growing with that organization and having now the opportunity to advance and contribute in a greater way.
Now, how did you and when did you decide that you wanted to, in a way, change careers from your career in speech pathology to more of being a health system administrator? Well,
ultimately, there was a point in 1996 where I did make that decision. What led up to it was my involvement in total quality management and continuous quality improvement. Like most organizations at the time, and certainly healthcare organizations, ours was steeped in and really focusing on continuous quality improvement and getting more into that sort of process improvement work. And so the objective at the time was for each department within the ministry to have sort of a representative who received some additional training in team facilitation and TQM and CQI principles and really got the work going within the department. And I had the privilege of serving as the rehabilitation department's designee, if you will, to sort of receive that training and lead that work. And over the course of a couple years from the early 1990s leading up until 1996, I did more and more of that, along with my clinical practice, both inside the rehab department and very quickly thereafter across many departments throughout the overall ministry. And that led to an opportunity in 1996 at which the role of Director of Continuous Quality Improvement, Case Management, and Risk Management became open, and I was asked to apply based on the work that I'd done. And that was a real point of consideration because it meant leaving clinical practice. That was a full-time operations role, and I had kind of evolved and grown to a role where I was about half-time seeing patients and half-time facilitating our quality improvement work. This really meant stepping out of direct patient care, and that was a very thoughtful decision point for me because I kind of knew how significant that was and what it meant, and yet felt a calling to grow and see if that work was on a full-time leadership basis was a good fit, see if I could make a contribution to the ministry on a greater level, not on just a one-to-one basis with patients, but a one-to-many basis, impacting processes that, as I say, would touch more and more patients throughout the course of a month and a year throughout the health system. And so that was really the point in time where I decided to take that step and again, see if it was a good fit and see if I could make a contribution, and ultimately it became a very good fit.
And I can imagine it was a significant decision for you. In your time with Ascension, you've also been able to participate in two very unique Ascension programs. One is the Ascension Executive Ministry Leadership Formation Program, and the other is the Ascension Leadership Academy. Could you talk a little bit about the impact of these two programs on your personal and professional life as well?
I certainly can. In the time that we have, I could fill it with this very conversation. Those two programs were, there aren't words to adequately express the depth and the significance and the impact on my professional career and personal approach to my work and my relationships. They're just tremendous, tremendous programs. And I, interestingly, had the great blessing of being in the inaugural cohort for both of those programs. So the Formation for Catholic Healthcare Ministry Leadership Program back in 2004 and 2005, and some of the big takeaways. Now with both of these programs, obviously there are a huge component is the relationships that you build, the trust that you build with the individuals with whom you participate in the cohort. You can't overstate the importance of those relationships. But really in terms of the formation program, the whole notion of work as ministry and approaching everything that we do as a expression and a manifestation of God's calling on our lives, and others experiencing God's love through the way that they interact with us, and us also carrying forward the legacy of the sisters and the daughters and the founding sponsors of our Catholic healthcare ministry, and the tremendous gravity and the weight and the privilege and the responsibility that is to be here leading at this point in time, carrying forward the legacy and the history and the service that they started, and ensuring that not only continues and sustains, but grows and flourishes over time to become even more a manifestation of our expression as Catholic healthcare as a ministry of the Catholic Church. So all of that was just tremendous, and it impacts every interaction, every decision, the way that we communicate changes throughout the organization, the way that we handle difficult situations, the way that we apply the ethical discernment process. Everything that I do on a day-to-day basis as a leader is impacted and influenced by that foundational grounding in our formation program. And then the Leadership Academy, again, just pulls that thread even farther and adds the exciting elements of innovation and learning how to pilot and be nimble and fail fast and fail forward, and really also sort of overlays all of our work around person-centered, value-based care. So, but also again with a strong formation component within the Leadership Academy. So those things, it isn't a stretch at all to say every decision I make, every difficult situation I contemplate, every opportunity that's before us, all of that now is filtered through the various lenses that those two programs have overlaid on my leadership.
Well, and Tom, I could imagine one of the great challenges as a leader is sharing that vision and that profound understanding of serving in a ministry with all of your associates and all of our providers with whom we work day by day. I imagine that's one of the key challenges, is conveying that very message and interest.
It's one of the key challenges, and it's also one of the most important things that we as leaders can do. So as I'm having this conversation with you this morning, we had our general orientation session. So I do an executive welcome at each one of those. And the conversation that you're talking about, helping folks just begin to understand their calling to our ministry, our calling as ministry, our work as ministry, the opportunity that we have carrying forward the legacy of our foundresses, that starts day one at general orientation. That's a part of the message that I deliver, that this is the mission and the ministry that you've joined, and you're here, I believe, called by God for a very specific purpose and a gift that only you can give our ministry, and I can't wait to unpack and discover that together with you.
Great. Well, we're speaking with Tom VanOsdol. Tom is the interim president and CEO of St. Vincent's Healthcare in Jacksonville, Florida. He's also Ascension's system chief operating officer in our Jacksonville ministry market. We're going to take a break on the Good Day Ascension podcast. When we come back, we're going to speak more with Tom about his experience in Jacksonville. He's there relatively recently from his initial service in Indiana with Ascension, and we'll talk more with Tom about his time at our ministry in Jacksonville on the Good Day Ascension podcast in just a moment.
I solemnly
swear
that I will support and defend the Constitution
of the United States
against all enemies,
foreign and domestic.
Our veterans honored their oath, and so do we. I'm Tony Tersini, the president and CEO of Ascension, and I'm pleased to announce that Ascension hospitals, clinics, and doctors nationwide now participate in the Veterans Choice Program. This means any veteran waiting more than 30 days for an appointment at the VA, or those who have to travel more than 40 miles from their home, can receive the compassionate and personalized care they deserve from their local Ascension doctor. Today, our veterans have a choice in healthcare, and it's our privilege to provide it. Learn more at ascension.org/veterans.
And welcome back to the Good Day Ascension podcast. My name is Steve Mamanella. Again, our guest is Tom VanOsdol. Tom is the interim president and CEO of St. Vincent's Healthcare in Jacksonville, Florida, also the system chief operating officer for our Jacksonville ministry market. And Tom, you moved from St. Vincent in Indiana to St. Vincent's Healthcare in Jacksonville late in 2015. Could you tell us a little bit about the St. Vincent's in Jacksonville? What should our listeners know about your health system and what the transition's been like for you and your family?
So this is just a wonderful, rich, historic ministry. We just celebrated our centennial anniversary all throughout the course of 2016 and had just multiple points of celebration and really significant remembrances and events, and used that not just as a tremendous celebration of the ministry that St. Vincent's has been to the Northeast Florida and Southeast Georgia broader region now for 100 years, but the launch pad for the next 100 years to come. So it was both a celebration and it was an aspiration for what we know we have as opportunity before us to take St. Vincent's to even greater heights. St. Vincent's is a large, complex system with 3 now large and growing hospital campuses throughout various parts of the Jacksonville community, a 5-county broader service area. We've got tremendous strength in our physicians, both in our primary care group, our now Ascension medical group here in Jacksonville, and multiple specialty services, including cardiology and orthopedics and neurosurgery, and just really tremendous expertise. Our cardiovascular service line is number 1 throughout the area, absolutely spectacular. We've got incredible individuals within our neurosciences division overall, neurologists and neurosurgeons. We've got a new partnership and agreement now with the Mayo Clinic for the delivery of cancer care here on our St. Vincent's Riverside campus. We've got just a tremendous volume of orthopedic service that's delivered from a couple of independent, highly specialized orthopedic groups. So what, kind of the message is we are a large, diverse, growing health system with absolutely unlimited potential for service to our mission and our ministry in the broader community in the years to come.
Well, and within the last year, Tom, you had to deal with something that I suspect as a former Midwesterner, you didn't have to deal with a lot, and that was you had a hurricane come and bear down on your health ministry in Jacksonville. How did that go for you and the team?
Wow, that was really obviously a unique experience for me, nothing I had experienced previously. Obviously, in the Midwest, you deal with things like snow and ice storms and tornadoes occasionally, but this was a very different kind of experience. So this was Hurricane Matthew back in the early October timeframe. And it was a very, very scary experience. It was really bearing down directly on the Jacksonville area, and a couple things over the course of that period. So at the end of the day, by the grace of God, from about 11 p.m. on the night prior, the event was on a Friday, so from about 11 p.m. Thursday until 5 a.m. Friday, which was a time where we were all awake and in the command center and watching and tracking the weather, a lot of prayers were answered, and the storm moved about 100 miles to the east, and then it drifted back toward land, but didn't have the absolute direct hit that it could have been. So there, before the grace of God, it could have been worse. But it was a scary experience. We ultimately experienced extraordinarily high winds, obviously tremendous amount of rain over the period of time, lots of uprooted trees. We had a minimal storm surge from the St. Johns River that came up, but no significant flooding. We did have flashing that was off our south side building, so we had water sort of running down one of the walls. So we had kind of the damage that you'd expect from a severe rain or thunderstorm, but we're blessed that we didn't have further damage. What was absolutely remarkable and incredibly inspiring was the work of our broader team, organized through our emergency management planning and our incident commander, Tracy Williams. At the end of the day, Steve, it was a galvanizing event for our team because we were under a very real, incredible threat. Everybody worked like clockwork. You could just see how rehearsed everyone was in their various roles within our incident command structure, how on top of everything everyone was, how pervasive the communications were and consistent the communications were, how well prepared we were for the worst. We had on site, 100% of our leadership team stayed throughout the 72-hour period that was the broader event. We took care of around 100 of our associates' children in our daycares on each of the campuses. We had pet care on each of the campuses, where we had probably 75 pets throughout the course of the days across our 3 campuses, all knowing that we're asking a lot of people to be here on site, not to travel, not only for their own safety, but for the continuity of care for our patients. And we want to make accommodations for them so they have their mind on patient care and not on their worries on, are their kids okay at home, are their pets okay at home, et cetera. So all of that was just incredibly well orchestrated and choreographed, and I was really awed by the precision with which this team executed our plan.
Well, and so today, thankfully, we're out of hurricane season, and now you're serving not just as the Chief Operating Officer for St. Vincent's, but you're also the interim CEO after the retirement of Dr. Mike Schatzline, who had led the ministry. What kind of things are you focusing on in your interim CEO role?
Well, I appreciate that, Stephen. It is an absolute blessing and privilege to serve in this role at this time, and it was a blessing to serve with Dr. Schatzline and to learn from him as a true mentor for me for a number of years. And so carrying on the work that he began here, we are working around continuing to build the culture and develop the leaders of this health system and really unite as one St. Vincent's as part of one Ascension. We've got multiple initiatives that probably mirror those of a number of our other ministries in different regions around building our primary care base, so adding and recruiting and growing and acquiring primary care practices to provide access for patients and to make that more convenient. We've got a broad ambulatory strategy where we are in the process of developing and opening a number of ambulatory facilities that will house full-service, high-capability urgent care and primary care, imaging and laboratory services, again, with the purpose of providing access and making care more convenient and accessible for those we serve throughout the broader region. We're continuing to grow our cardiology practice. We've got, as I mentioned previously, we've got tremendous specialists. We actually have a need for general cardiologists to continue to grow and provide access. We've got our new partnership with the Mayo Clinic around the provision of cancer care on the Riverside campus that I mentioned previously. That's going extraordinarily well, so continuing to grow and nurture that tremendous partnership is very much on top of the list. Much of what I mentioned fits into the category of growing our regional clinically integrated system of care, but in addition to those elements, creating new partnerships with existing practices and existing facilities throughout Northeast Florida and Southeast Georgia. We've got a number of those in Southeast Georgia that we're working on right now. That's an important part of our overall broader region. And then finally, St. Vincent's and Jacksonville has not historically offered behavioral health services to any great extent. And as we grow toward serving more folks under value-based agreements and providing person-centered value-based care, I'm absolutely convinced that we can't do that well without attending to individuals' behavioral health, mental health, and spiritual care needs. And so while we have obviously strong spiritual care services, the mental or behavioral health component of our overall system is one that we need to build out in a significant way.
Very, very holistic focused, for sure. Well, so Tom, you have had a unique opportunity as a leader to see Ascension's caregivers in action in 2 of our markets, in Florida and in Indiana. From your perspective, is there a special something that sets Ascension caregivers apart? We hear a lot about Ascension's commitment to compassionate, personalized care.
You know, for me, it's just the consistency of individuals that are rooted in our values, folks that come to Ascension and find a fit, an alignment of their own personal values with those of our mission and ministry. And you can just see, you know, when that fit is right, they really have the potential then to grow fully and flourish to be all the individual, the human being, the caregiver, the professional that God created them to be. And it's such a beautiful thing to watch. But it really is just that. It's that rooting of everything that we do and every patient and life that they have the privilege of touching, every interaction, the way that they treat each other as colleagues, all of that rooted in a manifestation of our values on a day-to-day basis. We've got a program that we had at our ministry in Indiana that I implemented down here at St. Vincent's in Jacksonville that's called Living Our Values Every Day. And it's a recognition program for associates, but it's really about calling out those special moments where associates go above and beyond, associates, physicians, and volunteers go above and beyond and evidence something in the work that they do that's a specific expression and manifestation of our core values. And to me, that's what absolutely sets our caregivers apart. As I mentioned on the front end, I had the privilege of working at 2 other facilities even prior to coming to Catholic Healthcare and to Ascension. And so I've seen good people in other environments, but there really just is something very, very special about Ascension and serving here, and it is that rootedness in our values.
Tom VanOsdol from St. Vincent's Healthcare in Jacksonville, thank you again for being with us on this month's Good Day Ascension podcast.
Steve, thank you. It's been my pleasure.
And thanks to each of you for listening today to the Good Day Ascension podcast as well. We'd love your feedback about this program. You can reach us by email at the email address goodday@ascension.org. And all of our podcasts can be found on Ascension's website at ascension.org/podcasts. On that webpage, you can also access an Ascension podcast series called Inspiration for the Ride Home, which offers weekly reflections that are designed to help you transition between work and your other priorities. And please be sure to like Ascension on Facebook and follow us on Twitter to get updates on the important work of Ascension's caregivers and associates across our one integrated ministry. For Ascension, I'm Steve Mamanella.